Hi there, my name is John and I'm a Human Doing. And what am I doing today? I'm building a dust collector slash air cleaner cabinet. So I'm combining the two of them. What I wanted to do was to take my dust collector, which is quite loud. It's a small shop, so it gets quite loud. I wanted to have something that would reduce the sound to some degree, but also use that cabinet for a double purpose. And I decided to put an air cleaner within that. I already have next to my light switches for the air cleaner and the dust collector. So it was an ideal thing because the outlets are in the same location. So this is me building a dust collector slash air cleaner cabinet. I hope you enjoy.
And here's a quick shot of the final product, which of course the dust collector air cleaner, which is connected to my DIY dust separator, which, I made that years ago, but it comes in handy. So like a lot of projects, I start by breaking sheet down. In this case, I had melamine. So I just used some white melamine. It's inexpensive and it's easy to deal with. As long as you have sharp blades, you get a nice clean cut. But I wasn't concerned with cosmetics with this. I just wanted something that was cost effective and readily available. Now that piece of plywood that I'm using as a template, that's what the dust collector was mounted on previously. I just, I jigsawed a piece of plywood because it was quick and easy. But this time around, I do want to do it a little bit nicer than I did previously. And so this time I'm using a router to cut the holes. These two holes are for access. One is for the actual dust collection where the vacuum suction sort of starts. And the other is an access door that I put into the dust collector just in case there's an issue and I've got to clean it out. So once I cut up all my melamine, or at least some of my melamine, I'm putting it together like a lot of things that I do with dados. So I have a dado stack set up, and dados aren't required, but if you do use them, it does make things go together much easier and more square and true, and it's just faster. So you'll spend a little bit more time cutting dados, but you'll save a lot of time on the assembly side. So here I'm cutting out a dado that's just wide enough for the thickness of the material, which is 5/8 material, so it's just wide enough for that 5/8, and it's about 1/4 inch down. I'm also doing grooves on the inside. Now in this case, I'm just sort of doing a blind cut. So I'm cutting it in and checking it to make sure that it's only as far as I need it to go, because I'm going to be assembling pieces on the inside that you'll see later. And there's also other holes inside here. Again, the same circle jig. It's just a throwaway circle jig. I should make a really nice one at some point. Maybe a future video will have that. But for now, it does the job. And you can see up here, this is where the dust collector is actually mounted. So it's up close to the ceiling. And the exhaust port for the dust collector is in the wall. So it actually vents outside the wall. So if the really, really, really fine dust doesn't stay in the shop, it's shot outside. But I'm using a blast gate. It's a 6-inch blast gate, and I can open it and close it as needed. So the hole that I have already cut here, I'm putting a relief in it, and that's just for the fan to sit inside. So the fan, you can see the fan guard right there. It's a relief cut to allow it to sit inside. It just makes it easier to locate and to center properly. So it made installation a little bit easier. You can see a lot of the final pieces that are cut. And that little chunk there, that's because I'm cheap. And I didn't want to cut up as much material, so I used a small piece. I wanted this whole project is sort of an L shape. So instead of doing one piece and then cutting out that relief cut you can see there, I made that small piece instead. It was a little bit more work, but I felt it used less material, and I only wanted to use a part of a sheet in this project. So you can see how I'm assembling it here piece by piece. So that's the section there. That's where the filter will go where the fan is. So I should probably note, this is all being put together. I haven't shown it here, but you can sort of see in the bottom left corner. It's all being put together with nails and with just carpenter's glue, just standard carpenter's glue, nothing fancy. You can see the relief for the cable that I put in there, just to make it easier for the filter to slide in. And that's the filter itself. It's a very tight fit. Trouble is, it's hard to get out.
All right, so something that I forgot about, made a mistake on, need to fix, is I need to make a way for this particular filter right here on the side. I need to find a way to make it easier to pull out. It fits in nice and snug, which is the way I wanted it, but I didn't give myself any way to pull it out. I could put a tab on the filter, but then I'd have to put a tab on every filter that I put in. So I think instead I'm going to put some finger tabs right here. And hopefully that makes it easier to pull these filters out. Like I said, it's a snug fit, and I want to be able to pull them in and out as I need them. So yeah, oops.
So I did this, I'll call it quick and ugly. So I took some scrap pieces of melamine and I used a small router with a top bearing bit. And I just cut a relief in it large enough, it's about 1 inch wide. So it's just big enough so that I could fit my fingers inside there. And then when I'm done, I popped it in with nails and I just pull it out. And you can see, well, as you can see as I'm pulling this off, you can see just enough room for my fingers to squeeze into those little spaces. And that gave me enough room to pull the filter out the way I originally intended. Have a peek. Now this is a snug fit, I mentioned that before, but having those tabs makes pulling the filter out relatively easy, and it gives me a fairly tight seal. So I mentioned a mistake earlier. This is another mistake. There is that rule, measure twice, cut once. In some cases, I think I might have to measure 3 times because it's not quite, you could see it wasn't enough room to clear for the motor, so I put that little sunroof inside the cabinet. You're going to say, well, that's not airtight. I did put a cover over top of that, so it is still a more or less airtight sealed fit. The piece here that you can see, it's a piece of HVAC piping that I put in, and I just cut a small, maybe 2-inch long piece, and I use that as a bridge because this is what's connected to that blast gate that goes to the outdoors. So I put a small piece here. Again, this is acting as a bridge, and I'm using liquid nails. So I cut all those little tabs to make it easy to fit into that relief cut that I put in there. And then when I'm finished, I'll just sort of smooth it out with my finger, and that's more than enough to hold it. There's more than enough strength there. And, you know, again, it doesn't have to be cosmetic. This is on the inside, but I squished it around just to make sure it had the best possible hold. And once that was in and dry, I was able to move on to the next part, which was sort of the sound dampening portion of this, if you want to call it that. This is definitely a, you know, not what I would normally use for sound dampening, but in this case, I think it works well enough. And this is underlayment for carpet. So I just went to a carpet store and I asked for some scraps, basically, so I got it for next to nothing. And this will help reduce the sound being emitted by the dust collection system. And it's only a minor drop. I didn't measure the difference in sound, but it is an audible difference. So I'd say it's at least 3 decibels better, which is good. I mean, any kind of reduction in sound is good for me and you know, my ears. And the 2 self-tapping screws that I'm putting in through the cabinet and into my dust collector, they don't impede the dust collector in any way. They're just there to make sure the dust collector is nice and sturdy and it doesn't move around, and it creates a nice tight seal on the bottom of that material because that sound dampening or carpet underlayment is at the bottom there. So I wanted to make sure that it was nice and sealed. Here's a peek of the inside of the cabinet. You can see that the ducting that's being used as the exhaust port, that's sort of a heavy-duty plastic flexible pipe. It's not the same as what I would use in the shop. It's not quite that heavy-duty, but it is much more heavy-duty than standard. And just in case you're wondering, that's how I access the electronics or the plugs. So those, you can see the plugs hanging out there. I put a piece of a seal around it to make sure when it's pushed against the wall that it's relatively airtight. And instead of making it a permanent fit on the top here, you can see that I'm, you know, squeezing it all down. I put screws on the top just in case I had to access the dust collector at some point in the future. Hopefully I don't anytime soon, but if I did, I can just unscrew it, pop the dust collector out, and we're good. You can see the finished product mounted, and it does quite a good job, actually, better than I expected initially. And I mentioned light switches, or the switches, so that's the light switch, of course. That's the dust collector, you can probably hear that now. And then finally the fan. Now this is on a timer, so that when I leave the shop, it cleans the air while I'm away.
Hey everybody, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, put them down below. This was a bit of a, you know, I think in the end it was a success, but there were a lot of little failures that went along. I mean, they say measure twice, cut once. I think I might have to start measuring 3 times. or at least, you know, putting things down on paper when it's like this. This was sort of an impromptu, I want to do this, and I didn't put enough thought into it. It did work in the end. I'm quite happy with it. The only thing I think I could improve slightly is get a fan with slightly higher CFM, just more velocity. And I think it'll help improve the air quality that much further. although it is working quite well. So again, thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, ask your questions down below, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks.